Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I'm your host, Dylan Wallace. Today, we got a great issue for you guys. It is going to be in Omega, so we tend to just go immediately into our reviews. However, some pretty big news happened, at least since I'm finding it out, since we last recorded. But DC and Marvel are going to be doing another crossover in 2026. It's going to be coming out in late March. This time, it's going to be Superman on the DC side, and it's going to be Spider-Man on the Marvel side, which I think is freaking awesome. Looking forward to that, definitely. Obviously, you got the heavy hitters on both sides versus before, where you had just Batman and Deadpool. Seems like Marvel was just kind of giving some leftovers here rather than really the cream of the crop. But now, the cover looks pretty cool between those two. Obviously, the colors match up pretty well with the blue and the red, and so I'm looking forward to it for sure. I'll be looking for it in the previews, get that thing pre-ordered, and then, at the end of March, we are going to run it back. So I guess things were pretty successful for them in order to be able to do this for another go-around. I imagine we're going to do it similarly to how we did it before, where we have DC writes their version, and then Marvel's going to write their version. And this would be cool if this is just something we do for a little bit here throughout 2026 and any further. I haven't looked into detail if they announced that they're doing anything beyond this, other than just seeing, the next crossover that's going to happen. So I'm just glad that they made it work, and I'm looking forward to more of it. So with that, I think we can go ahead and talk about our reviews. So let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? So we have in total 10 books, as per usual. Surprise, surprise. But I'll go ahead and read off those 10 books so you know exactly what books and the order that we're reading them in. We just have two from the polls from last week. So we have G.I. Joe, issue number 15, and Miles Morales Spider-Man, issue number 41. Everything else, the remaining 8 are going to be backlogs. So we have Batman and Robin, issue number 18. That's going to be the last of the singles. Everything else here is going to be in trade. So we had The Nice House on the Lake, issue number 9. We have Saga, issue number 35. Assorted Crisis Events, issue number 4. Then we have Do a Powerbomb, that's issue number 3. Poison Ivy, issue number 7. Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 4. And then One Dark Knight, issue number 3, which is the conclusion to this trade. So those are going to be the 10 books, and we're going to review them in that order. Let's go ahead and start off with our G.I. Joe. And again, when I have a mix of these trades and the singles, got to be careful when lifting all these books, keeping them in the right order, that is. So, G.I. Joe, issue number 15. Enjoyed this one a lot. For me, I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4.3. Just a reminder, and for folks that are brand new, first of all, welcome. Appreciate you hopping on. The way that I review these books is I catch up on everything thus far, and I do spoil the heck out of them when I review them. So just fair warning there. If you do not want any spoilers, it's just not going to be the show for you. So just kind of keep that in mind. But that being said, we'll talk about my review on League as far as a score. We'll talk about League score, catch you up, and I'll let you know whether or not this is a good time to jump in. And then for the video folks, I'll flip through some of the artwork as well so you can get a flavor of what the book is all about. So G.I. Joe, issue number 15. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.3. I think this book was really good. Continuation of what we have here, where Duke and Cobra Commander have been captured by Road Pig, and it's just picking up immediately where we left off. So both of them are now captured by Road Pig. We have the Dreadnoughts, which was part of Cobra Commander's squad, but they've betrayed him, and they're seeing this as an opportunity to take over, along with Destro, who's actually the main head of Cobra Commander moving forward. And Road Pig seems like he's going to get into it with the Dreadnoughts, but they start to actually hit it off, and it looks like they're buddy-buddy now, which leaves Duke and Cobra Commander in that much of a even worse situation. And then on top of that, more Dreadnoughts show up, and they too are also buddy-buddy with Road Pig, and so it's not looking good at all for Duke and Cobra Commander. Meanwhile, Destro, he is trying to set up alliances and truce with different governments around the world, saying, hey, we got a new leader here at Cobra, and with that, I want to set up basically a new trade deal to where he is providing arms to everyone and call a truce on the kind of proxy war that they were having. And on top of that, back at the G.I. Joe kind of headquarters, you have Clutch and you have CoverGirl, who realize there's something wrong with Duke for taking this long and the fact that he hasn't reached back out. Colonel Hawk did say for them to stand down, but Clutch is like, you know what, it's just been too long and I just got a bad feeling about it. So let's go and try to find out where he's at. And on top of that, Clutch is the one who's been, kind of dealing with the Autobot as well. It's like, I have someone who's going to be able to help us. So which leads us to believe in issue number 16 that we're going to have the Autobots have more of a focus in the G.I. Joe series, which is cool. So looking forward to all of that. Good story. Nice kind of continuation here. I left it at a 4 mostly because it was just more rising action in my opinion. Didn't have kind of the big blow off. You already have Duke and Cobra Commander working together, so that was really brought out in issue number 14, so no surprise here. So you didn't get like an extra half point because of that, and just the continuation of the rising action just left it more in the 4 territory for me personally. So with that being said, let's show off some of the artwork here, which is pretty good. You start off with the fight between Road Pig and Duke, but he does eventually get captured. Here's where you have the Dreadnoughts show up. They end up fighting at first with Road Pig, but very quickly they end up being buddy-buddy. Destro's basically making that truce there. Rest of the Dreadnoughts start to show up towards the end here, and it's just not looking good at all. And then here's Clutch and CoverGirl basically saying, hey, we need to go after Duke. So yeah, good book. Is it time to jump in? I'd rather you jump in at 14. I think you're going to be better off doing that, but you would be fine here if you did. This is part 3. Part 2 would have been fine. Obviously, part 1 at issue number 13 is a good place as well. But you'd be fine. It is the middle of a story, but you're not going to miss out too much other than like how did these two end up together, but it catches you up there. So don't worry about that. So yeah, G.I. Joe issue number 15. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.3. Then next up here we have Miles Morales Spider-Man issue number 41. So this one, I gave it a 4. League gave it a 4.1, so pretty much right in line with League. I'll say for this, towards the end here, I see the conclusion. It says to be concluded. So I'm wondering, is this now going to be, let's actually go ahead and flip through. Yeah, the next one is going to be the final Miles Morales, which is crazy for me because finally I get caught up to Miles Morales and now it's going to end. I just find that so funny and interesting. It took me forever to get caught up on this one. This was the longest backlog I had by far. I just got caught up. This is probably the first week where I'm like doing it. Yes, it's part of the Omega, but it is also part of the current run. From just last week. So it's just so funny that now it's going to be concluded. But hey, 42 issues in total is hell of a run for sure. So what we have here is Rabble and Miles teaming up together. So Rabble's been like the big bad really throughout the entire series. And now they are teaming up together. There's this sentient AI that is after them. It sounds like something that we're all afraid may happen in the very near future. But that is what they're dealing with. And so Rabble and Miles, they end up arguing and bickering for the first third of the issue. The AI shows up now kind of stronger, better than ever, knows how to attack. Specifically is looking to attack Miles's vibranium suit, and sure enough has some sort of MacGuffin that's able to neutralize the vibranium. So it's looking like the AI is going to win here. Rabble is attacking, but she is able to communicate with these electronics, but just not quite at the same level as the AI, and it seems like it has the edge. They are looking to try to get some help and support, and then so through, I think it's like some sort of portal, ends up coming our actual Peter Parker Spider-Man. So he comes through, he shows up to help and support and to back up both Miles and Rabble, and now they are ready to fight in the final fight against this AI, which will be the conclusion to Miles Morales Spider-Man. So I'm looking forward to it. It's been a crazy ride. I love that we're ending it with Rabble because she was such a main focus for like 30 of these issues, so that feels fitting. But Peter Parker coming in to help at the end does feel like kind of like, really, does it have to be Peter? Can Miles can't just do it on his own? So we'll see how they end up ending that one. I imagine it's going to be a longer issue. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look here. Yeah, 40 pages on that one. So we'll get some, hopefully, good closure that we have there. But I'm looking forward to it for sure. As always, the artwork in this is excellent. You have some great action scenes here. Again, a lot of the dialogue, though, is basically the Rabble and Miles bickering and fighting back and forth in the beginning, but then realizing they need to team up. Here's some awesome fight scenes where the AI has a whole bunch of like clone robots to fight after Miles and Rabble, so they are really outmatched and overrun at this point until Anansi, that's who it is. Anansi is who helps out, and he brings in Peter Parker, Spider-Man, to be able to help out and support to get us ready for the final fight. So yeah, good book. Is it the one to jump into? It's not really. At this point, maybe I think it was like 38 or 39 where you want to jump into. 41 is kind of tough, and 42, of course, is going to be tough as well. But I've enjoyed Miles a lot. I mean, maybe go ahead and pick up some of the trades here. Obviously, we're super far into the story, and at this point, it's like tough to recommend, but I've been enjoying the art style and everything. So if you're looking for more Spider-Man in your life and you haven't considered Miles, like maybe look at it that way. But other than that, just kind of is what it is. Maybe you restart when Miles picks up all over again. So next up here, we're going to have Batman and Robin issue number 18. So this one, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.2. Excellent continuation of the Memento storyline that we have here. I think the biggest thing for me is this felt not like a filler, but like more of a backstory type of issue, in the sense of we're just learning more about Bruce's partner back in the day in London and the detective and professor that they were learning under. So come to find out in this issue that Memento, who is the guy that they're going after now, he was some sort of crazy serial killer back in the day. This is when Bruce was at university. He studied abroad, trying to be more of a detective. Here's how he picked up some of those skills. They stopped Memento there. Now we have kind of like a copycat killer who's doing a lot of the same things. He started out a war between Penguin and Tiger Shark, and he's been blowing up a bunch of different sections of Arkham Asylum, just like creating a lot of terror and chaos in Gotham. And now we're at the point where Batman and Red Hood are trying to neutralize Penguin's gang and Tiger Shark's gang. And then Robin is with Bruce's old, I guess, kind of colleague or, fellow classmate that was studying under this professor over in the UK. So from her, we get this backstory of the original Memento killer was that professor, was that detective that they were learning under. He was framed, or at least they think he was framed, for the crime, but there was such an overwhelming amount of evidence that it was like impossible for him not to be convicted. And then he died in prison. And so what she's trying to do here is clear his name of like, they didn't get the right guy back in the day. So we learn all of that piece. Now, while Red Hood and Batman are fighting, they're basically talking about everything that's happening to Damian, that's happening to Robin, and like feeling a whole bunch of pressure, like maybe he doesn't want to continue this, and Batman's like just not getting through his head of like the psychological damage that man does to all these different Robins. And Red Hood is like, yeah, dude, like you screw all of us up, and it's only a matter of time before we break. And sure enough, they stop Penguin and Tiger Shark's gangs from fighting each other. Batman does some contemplating. They head back to the Batcave. Red Hood leaves, does his own thing. Damian heads back as well. And Damian puts his foot down and basically says, Bruce, I'm done with being your Robin once we figure and solve out this Memento thing. And he basically walks out. And that's the cliffhanger. So great book there. More character development here, rather than the advancement on getting any closer to catching Memento, and then also learning some more backstory about who Memento is and, why Bruce's former classmate and, I guess, partner, if you will, why she's so vested as well. So kind of great all around from a character development aspect. So let's go ahead and show off some of that artwork here. Artwork's excellent and it has continued to be throughout. I do drop this one in a couple of issues, and that's only because, the pulls was getting so long and I wasn't even starting to read this, and now I kind of regret it because I've been enjoying Batman and Robin a lot, especially this Memento arc. So we'll see. Here's basically the reveal that was that professor and detective who was caught when this is all the evidence that they caught him on, which is kind of crazy. And some more of the dialogue going back and forth and the different action that you have with Batman and Red Hood as well. Advertisement for All In. And then at the end here is where we have Damian walking out, basically. So, Batman and Robin, issue number 18. Again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.2. Alrighty, on to the trades here. We have Nice House on the Lake, issue number 9. So, this is a wild one. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. Nice House on the Lake continues to be an awesome book, an awesome series. Catch you up on things. We have these group of friends. They all are friends with this guy, Walter. Walter brought them to this house, but the world is completely died around them. And come to find out, this is some sort of experiment that's basically going on. And it got to the point where all the friends were starting to figure it out. One friend in particular who grew up with Walter the longest knew that Walter was this alien, knew that this was all going to happen, tried to come up with a plan of how to stop the end of the world and all this happening. But Walter, being this alien, and has these powers to where he can wipe people's minds. So that was the end of the first trade. On to the second trade at this point. Now Walter is part of this group, and nobody really understands or knows why they're at this house, and they're all trying to escape or try to leave so they can go back home. And the reason is they totally forget that the whole world out there is completely dead. And he left one person who still has the memory, but she's locked her in a separate room. So all the other, I think it's like 11 people, don't realize that Nora is there. Nora remembers that she's there, and Walter's using her as like a sounding board. And in the previous issue, Nora is like, hey, you can't have your cake and eat it too. They either know that the world is dead and they're all going to hate you and like go crazy, or they're not going to know that the world is dead. They're going to think that they're like stuck there, and they're going to continue to try to get out because they think that there's a world out there that they can get to. So they're either going to try to leave or they're going to hate you. You can't just have it so they stay and they just party and have a good time, and that's the end of it. So that is the issue that Walter's running into. Now there's one friend who's the newest to the friend group, and she describes it really well. She's there a week late into summer camp, and all the cliques and the friends have all joined up, and now there's like no room for her. She's like just kind of awkwardly there. And her name's Ryan, and so she's a little depressed, goes wandering the property, puts her hand up against a glass window and like breathes on it, like kind of the fog that you can do when you go into like a mirror or whatever. And then someone writes something, and they write hi. And that was the end of the previous book. So now we get to book number 9. And I was too stupid to realize, but it was Nora, very obviously now. And she's on the other side. And Nora basically writes out, onto the mist that Ryan is putting onto the glass, Walter's lying to you, don't believe him. And she spells out everything to Ryan of like, he's wiping your memory, everyone is dead, this has all happened before, and he's like tricking everyone. So, just reveals everything to specifically Ryan. And says, I'm working with Walter. There's like this structure. Go to it at the middle of the night. And that's like the instruction. So that takes place. The other thing that happens too is in the first trade, they realized that they were immortal because one of them tried to kill themselves or like tried to hurt themselves, and they didn't. Now in this one, we're from the perspective of this acupuncture therapist guy. So he's doing acupuncture to one of the guys, and when he does it, the needle, after a couple seconds, comes out of the body because they can't get hurt. So they come to the realization, again, in the second trade, that none of them can get hurt or none of them can die. So that realization has happened again, even after the memories are being wiped. So it's basically like history repeating itself. So then Walter meets up with Nora, and he's like, I just don't know what to do. And then like, help me like figure this out more and think about it. So Nora's like, I can do that, but you have to let me understand more of like, what's the motive? Like, what are the whys? And Walter's like, fine, I'll tell you more. And he takes her quote unquote backstage, if you will, for the production. Because it's like they're all like living in this nice house on a lake that has a force field around it. And they're supposed to be like living almost like a Truman Show type of life. And so he goes into that building that has no doors and no windows with Nora, and then Ryan goes running in right behind, right before the door closes, and that's a cliffhanger. So we'll see what happens, and I can't wait. It's so interesting. It's so cool. What a crazy concept from James Tynion. It's freaking nuts. So it's good stuff. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Obviously, I gave it a 4.5. It's Great stuff. So let's get to where we're at here. Okay, yeah. So here is, like you can see, Nora writing everything on this for Ryan. Here's where all the acupuncture stuff starts, and they come to the realization again that they can't die and they can't get hurt. And then towards the end here, this is where Walter and Nora are going into that little place that had no doors, and then Ryan sneaks in right towards the end. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one a lot. I think the next pulls I have 7 issues. I want this to be one of the 3 that I end up reading for Saturday. Between this, Saga, and then probably Batman and Robin is what I'm thinking. But yeah, it's just so addictive. I just want to keep going, to be honest with you. Is it the time to jump in? No. Just start from the beginning. Just start from the very beginning. Nice House on the Lake, trade number 1, trade number 2. And now we have Nice House by the Sea. So that's another one as well. I think basically we're going to come towards the realization towards the end that, like, this isn't the only experiment. There are other people that are like this, and then that's like another subplot that's going on. And that's a 12-parter too. So I've been pulling that, and then, we'll be reviewing that sometime in 2026. So good stuff. Nice House on the Lake, issue number 9. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. All right, now Saga. We get back to it. So Saga here, we are on issue number 35. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.6. Excellent stuff. As always, we got a continuation here. We have Alana and Marco. They are 2 different races that are at war, but they fell in love. They had a baby together, and their baby is like a half-breed. Crazy, huge sacrilege. It would be an entire conspiracy, catastrophe if this was to be found out. So it's like a crazy intergalactic battle, but it's like very whimsical and over the top and hilarious kind of tragedy thing that's all happening at the same time. So Hazel, the child, is in some sort of refugee camp, and she revealed herself to one of the teachers. And there are some other of the horned species, which is Marco's species, that are there that are trying to protect her, including her grandmother. But the teacher, who's like a totally separate species, is sympathetic to what's going on, and she wants to help Hazel. At first, everyone's kind of iffy about it, but she's like, I want to get her out. There's no guarantee if she stays here that she's not going to get caught by someone who's not as understanding, and it's going to be worse. So they're kind of on the fence on whether or not Hazel should go with her and have a shot, or if she's safer to stay here. Still kind of up in the air, and we didn't get a definitive answer, but it got closer to making that decision. So that happens. The other thing that happens is we have 2 reporters that are trying to reveal this child out to the world, but they're trying to find whether they can track her down. They get to the point where they land on an island, and the island there has one of the assassins that was featured earlier in the series. The Will is his name, and he's trying to get after Prince Robot. Prince Robot is part of this faction that's helping out the Landfalls, Alana's race. And he wants to find her. So the reporters uses his inside source. They're able to track down where Prince Robot lives. Prince Robot, though, left with Alana and Marco, and he left his son behind on the planet. So they show up there, and they're threatening the son that they're going to kill him. And then his little kind of walrus and seal protector are there to fight. That's the cliffhanger. And then the last thing is you have Prince Robot, Marco, and Alana are trying to get to the refugee camp. They don't know all that's happening in the refugee camp, but they're just trying to get there to save Hazel. So as they're flying their ship towards the planet, they're like, how can we use Marco's has magic? How can we phase in? Landfall people have defenses, but the robot people that they partner up with, they have to put some temporary disable the barrier in order to allow the robot people to do what it does, so it doesn't interfere with their components. So the robot guy, they all look like the same big TV computer things on their head. They all look the exact same, and it's so funny throughout this thing. It's how could you guys be so racist and think that I look like someone else? And it's they look identical. There's nothing discerning about them other than the types of clothing that they wear. And so basically he dresses up and pretends to be someone who's still alive and not completely banished from the kingdom, and they allow the barrier to go down. Marco then phases through. All at the same time, the spaceship that they're in is being attacked by these different mines that were never actually fully retired. So the ship is being attacked. Marco just barely gets through, and we'll see what all happens, A, to the ship, and then B, if Marco's able to get to Hazel in time. So yeah, great issue. Rising action for sure. I can almost guarantee when we get to the next issue, Marco's going to show up, but Hazel's going to already be gone. Like, this is how this series ends up going, and they get split up, then they get back together, then they get split up, and then so on and so forth. But it's awesome. The journey is freaking incredible. So let's go ahead, show off some of the artwork. As always with Saga, I just got to be mindful of the nudity is the thing. So as I go and try to show it off, make sure we get all of that correct. So here's where Hazel is, or I'm sorry, Alana and Marco are convincing Prince Robots. At the same time, here's where Hazel is being convinced also to leave. Oh, sorry, that was the previous issue. So here is actually more of what's happening and taking place in this particular issue, but you can see the art style is very similar. So this is where the teacher is talking to Hazel, trying to get her to leave. This is where they're all debating whether or not it's a good thing to do. Prince Robot dressing up as that guy. They're in that minefield right before Marco leaves and goes for Hazel, and then at the end where the assassin shows up, but at the very end here where you got the seal and the walrus here to protect him. So yeah, Saga, it's dope stuff. Start from the beginning and just keep going through it. I don't really think my position's ever going to change on that. So Saga issue number 35, gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.6. Then we get to Assorted Crisis Events, issue number 4. This one is another dark and twisted one from Assorted Crisis. I'm actually thinking I'm enjoying it. I'm giving it high scores. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.6. But I don't feel like I really need to continue to read this. Like, I get it. It's going to be some crazy, dark, cringy, horrific thing that happens, but I'm not like itching to figure out what's the next horrible thing that they're going to write about, to be honest with you. So I think I may just, end up leaving it at this first trade. But still, good issue. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.6. This issue that we have here is this guy who's living through his life in like the span of days. So like his whole life happens extraordinarily quickly. Time is truly flying. By the time he wakes up and gets out of bed to like brushing his teeth, he's like already graduated. And then so he's graduated, he's now married. He like can't even remember like his wife's name and like any of his kids or even having kids. He has no idea what he does at his job, and he just kind of shows up. And then the next time that he like shows up at his job, he's like years and years and years and years down from the time that he was like last there. He ends up cheating on his wife. He ends up actually being bisexual and cheating with a guy. He doesn't even remember the guy's name, but then he does remember his name. Wife gets divorced with him, and it's like the time is just like flying. And by the time the next event's happening, he like can barely remember at all. But he's honestly has no idea what's happening. He gets to be like an old man, and his job is like fired him, but they fired him months ago, and he's like doesn't even remember what he was doing at his job. It's like super sad and depressing, and it almost makes you think about your own life at a little bit of like, oh my gosh, like what have I done in my life? And you know, obviously you know what you're doing at your job, but like, did you decide any of this stuff? Did you actually just happen into it? It gets like super dark and depressing if you start thinking about it too deeply, which is honestly why I gave it a really good score, because it does make you think about, you know, things a little more deeply than you ordinarily would when you're just kind of reading some of these comics. But yeah, he's just like stumbling through life, and then he wants to get, after the divorce, he wants to get with this guy that he was having the affair with, but that guy is already married with someone else, and then he makes another attempt to try to get with him, but he's already dead, and like he's now like super old and dying as well. He's smoking cigarettes constantly. He ends up like getting cancer, and then sure enough, he dies. It's a crazy, wild, insane story, and it's, you know, as you're reading through it, this is like a matter of days that it happened in his life that just passed right through him, and just the stress and the anxiety, and he doesn't know where he is. I can imagine this is kind of what dementia's like too. It was insane. So pretty wild book, pretty crazy story. Let's go ahead, flip through some of the artwork here so you can see all what I'm talking about. So yeah, here he is here, like literally wakes up as a boy and as a child, and by the time he gets out of bed, like he's already starting to work. And then his life just basically continues, and everything is just like a flash, and he's had roommates, but he can't even remember the name of his roommates, and then suddenly he's married, even though he's like, I don't even know her name, and like all this craziness, and time just keeps going and going and going, and he just doesn't know what the hell is going on at all. So it's it's a trip and a half for sure. So Assorted Crisis events, wild stories that continue each time. We'll finish this up here. I think at issue number 6 is that how many this one has? Let's see if I go back. No, just 5 for this one. So we got one more, and then we'll be all finished up with the first trade for Assorted Crisis events. I do recommend it, but for me, I don't need to continue any further, for me personally. But it's good. I mean, and it deserves all the critical acclaim, and I continue to give it high scores. I'm just not called back to it for whatever reason. So, but I can certainly objectively look like from a critical lens of like this writing and the storytelling is excellent. So that's Assorted Crisis events. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4 or 4.6, and that's issue number 4. The next up here we have is Do a Powerbomb. So Do a Powerbomb is dope. I love it so much because this is where the two passions and hobbies in my life meet up as one. This is going to be issue number 3. I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.7. It's incredible stuff, from the artwork to the storytelling to how it depicts professional wrestling, which is like perfect for someone who understands what's happening. But you don't need to be like a wrestling nut to be able to understand what's happening here either. What the story is here is insane. We have Lona, whose mother died in the ring. But when she died in the ring, we didn't realize that her opponent, who unintentionally, of course, messed up the move and ended up breaking her neck, was actually her father, as the wrestler Cobra's son. And the reason is her father was wearing a mask. For some reason, I thought the person who was sitting with her at ringside was her father, but I guess that was her uncle. And it was just not really mentioned where her father is. But sure enough, that is who her dad is Cobra's son. And it's not like he picked up the mask and started wearing it again. He's always been Cobra's son. And so because of the death of the mother, basically nobody in the business is willing to train her, even though she wants to be a wrestler. And so there's this necromancer who's on this totally different dimensional plane. He's watching human wrestling, and he's obsessed with wrestling, and decides that he wants to put together a tournament between all these different interplanetary beings. And he invites Lona and says, like, I'm a necromancer. I can bring your mother back to life. But it's a tag team tournament. You need a tag team partner. So Lona says, okay, I'm going to recruit Cobra's son because obviously you killed my mother, right? So you're going to want to bring her back, and it's the least that you can do. So he does agree. And then at the end of that issue, it is revealed that Cobra's son is Lona's father. So now, at the beginning of this issue, it is Cobra's son, her father, and the guy who originally wouldn't train her, which is basically her uncle. So it's and you think like, oh, maybe they're brothers. Nope, that was Lona's mother's brother, right? So the dead sister and then the dead wife, those two guys, they're talking and how they basically decided not to train her. The uncle's like, hey, well, she's really good. So the bottom line is, and she wants it, that we really should be training her, and you should be going through with whatever it is for this tournament. So he decides to, and they team up together. They meet up at the place where they need to go, pulls them into this other dimension, and he's wearing the mask the whole time. So she has no idea that this is her father that she's with, and still maintaining that disguise. They go to the bar, hang out at the bar there, and you have 2 other wrestlers that are part of the tournament, and they start causing trouble. And they start a fight, and they pick the fight on both Lona and Cobra's son. And the big thing that they reveal is that, oh yeah, you guys are from Earth, right? That's where wrestling is fake. And they start laughing it off. It's like, haha, the only place in all the dimensions combined that wrestling is actually fake. And that's where Lona and Cobra's son look at each other like, it's not fake here? Like, what the hell? And so they attack. And when they attack, it's these 2 orangutan brothers that prevent the attack. And it's like, hey, we're your opponents, Lona and Cobra's son, for tomorrow, and we want you fresh as a daisy going in. So we'll save you for now, but obviously when the bell rings, like, all bets are off. So sure enough, they're ready, they go, they have the match. Now, if you know wrestling, with tag team, they say very specifically you can go and you break up the pin once, but that's it. Otherwise, you're disqualified. We all know that that's not necessarily the case for professional wrestling, but that's what they say for the story. Bell rings, and these are legitimate orangutans that they are fighting. So obviously, Cobra's son, he wants to start being the dad. And he starts off, he's fighting the orangutan, and he's just getting his ass handed to him. They are just beating the actual crap out of him because it's orangutans against a human. So it gets to the point where Lona is like, tag me in, give me a hot tag, but he refuses to. And so sure enough, the orangutans, they hit one of their finishers, and it looks like he's about to get the pin. 1, 2, 3. But before we get the 3, Lona goes in and breaks up the pin, drags him over, tags herself in. She goes in and she hits a freaking V trigger, which is like a Kenny Omega move, like a flying knee to the face, which looked awesome. And then from there, she's able to then hit a moonsault onto the guy in the ring, gets the 1, 2, 3. They move on, and they're going to face the pizza guys in the next round. Dope. Loved it. Incredible stuff. Awesome story. So let's go ahead, flip to the artwork here. So here is the start of it. We got the brother-in-laws basically talking to each other. They get to the tournament. Here's where they head to the bar, start talking some smack. We got the orangutans who then start to jump in and they help out. And then from there, we get all set for the match and the tournament. Of here are all the teams that are going to be participating. So our guys are called Sun and Steel. And they head into the ring. Boom. Starts off with a massive drop kick to the face. Like, my goodness gracious. If that would have happened in real life, like, that could have ended it right there, to be perfectly honest with you. So the fight continues, and it looks like they're going to be taken out for sure. But this is when Lona comes in. Here's where she hits that crazy-looking V-trigger, which looked absolutely nuts. Actually, yeah, that's where it happened. Then she hits this picture-perfect moonsault off the top with the splash. 1, 2, 3. Here's where we have this match of the pizza guys who they're going to be facing in the very next round. So, yeah. Awesome story. Awesome book. Awesome art. I completely understand why it's getting all the high scores that it's getting. I'm loving it. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.7. That's Do a Powerbomb issue number 3. And it's a trade, so just get the trade at this point. But I do recommend it. All right, just a couple more here. We got Poison Ivy issue number 7. So this is the start of the second trade. It's a hardcover because I'm broken as a person. I went into the shop and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to continue with Poison Ivies. They had one for me, but it was volume 4, which I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 5 already came out. So I was looking for 5. I go to the shelf, and sure enough, I see the 4 hardcover they had, and they have 5, but they're like softback trades, and I'm like, it's not going to look good on the shelf. I need it to be the hardcover. So they went and they special ordered it. So it should be coming in soon. So this is volume 2, the first issue in it for Poison Ivy. It's dope. It continues kind of the awesome thread that it has. So I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.2. The art is outstanding. Story, we're starting off a little slower. We'll see if it picks up here. So Poison Ivy, she's beaten her professor, and now she wants to go after the big bads in the world. Corporate interests, big billionaires, and then fracking in particular. So she heads to Montana. She gets a job as a gardener at this billionaire CEO's house that's doing fracking. Company claims to be doing fracking in a cleaner way, but how can you really be doing that? She wants to investigate and figure it all out. Sure enough, when she gets there, things are kind of weird. The same creature that was attacking her back in the first volumes are also here. So she goes and she investigates, and the cleaner way of fracking, sure enough, it's like the same spores and virus that was causing all the infection to her in the previous volume. So she takes that thing out, and then she's like, I got to go and snoop around in the house. So she does, and when she does, the CEO is there and recognizes her and says, I know who you are, and she's on to Poison Ivy. And she says, you're Poison Ivy, aren't you? And then, boom, the fight is on. And the CEO has this, like, spray that she uses on the Poison Ivy. And it does something to where it paralyzes her. And she's, like, completely paralyzed. She cannot move whatsoever. And then she reveals that that CEO used to be the assistant to the professor that, made Poison Ivy who she is. But it was, like, years before Poison Ivy showed up. So that's basically the end of the issue of her, like literally petrified and paralyzed, stuck up against a wall. It's kind of nuts. So this would be fine to jump into, but honestly, volume 1 was so excellent, you might as well just start there. So here's what poison ivy is, and sure enough, she goes and sees like that purple gooish stuff, and then here's the creature that goes in fighting her. You can see the art is just like outstanding from the detail and design of these creatures, and then like just like the razor green and how like the vines on it are like, I guess, popping out of the page. That's like the best way I can describe it. So here's her like snooping around the house at this point, and she calls her out that she's poison ivy. So the fight is on here, and then she reveals that she is of course poison ivy, but this is where the lady sprays the stuff on her, and then she becomes like totally paralyzed and petrified, like stuck up against the wall. So cool issue, cool way to start it, but we'll have to see where it goes. Not fully at the 4.5. I'd say it's still kind of a 4, especially in comparison to some of the previous issues, but I could tell we're on our way to something pretty cool and interesting. We'll just have to see if it nails it. So again, Poison Ivy issue number 7, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.2. All right, folks, then we get to it. The heavy hitter, Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 4. This book, my goodness gracious, is absolutely outstanding. This issue is outstanding as well. For those on the video, you can see it. For those on the audio, this book got a 4.6. I gave it a 5. It is absolute
perfection.
It's perfect. I love this book so much. I understand why it got all the accolades, all the nominations, and won the awards that it did. From the art to the storytelling, everything about it is outstanding. To get you caught up on what Helen of Wyndhorn is and where we are at, Helen had a father who, this is like in the 1930s, Wild Wild West type stuff. She is requested to come back home from the governess of the Wyndhorn estate. And the governess basically brings her back, but she was living life on the road, living pretty hard, drinking a lot. The actual father patriarch, Barnabas, shows up, and he's the grandfather to Helen, and we have all these secrets going on. Turns out he's like some sort of adventurer. They go to this other world, they adventure and do whatever it is that they do over there, as though it's like some crazy high fantasy land. Go like raiding places, hanging out in taverns, drinking mead, like meeting gods, destroying gods, like returning different animals. It's as though they're living this crazy Lord of the Rings fantasy out there. And Helen has been going on these adventures with him as of issue 3. Now issue 4, they're continuing to go on these adventures, and they're having a wonderful time. But the thing is now, is Helen is sick and tired of being the damsel in distress. She's like, I've read my father's books, and I don't want to be that. I want to be this one warrior that was portrayed in this one book. So she's like, Barnabas, I want to be trained to be a warrior. And so at first, the baroness, or the governess of the estate is like, absolutely not. She needs to learn her studies, can't do this. And basically, once Barnabas says something, like it just happens. So he calls to his butler, you'll trade Helen, you'll give her a year's time, and then we'll see if she's ready. And the training will start tomorrow. So that's what they do. First half of this is like straight up Rocky montage. She goes out, hangs on a limb of a tree all day, all night, and then the training begins the next morning. And they just train like a freaking madman, learning all these different weapons, footwork, cardio, you name it. Just training nonstop for an entire year. While Barnabas, the grandfather, is still going out and still adventuring, and she's just training. Full year goes by. Seems like she's ready. She looks like an absolute killing machine at this point. And Barnabas asks, like, is she ready or not? And we basically allude to the fact that he doesn't trust him, and a lot of it has to do with what the father, and so that'll come into play a little bit later. So they start to spar one another. They're going back and forth. It lasts quite a while, and it gets to the point where he feels satisfied that she's ready to, start adventuring again. So that's what they do. And they go on more adventures, and they have a wonderful time, and everything seems fine until one day Barnabas comes back a little later than they would have expected, or at a really awkward time that they would have expected. opens up the door, and there's Helen completely bloodied, and he's just holding her, and she's just a bloody mess, like freaking head to toe. And he basically describes that they were fighting some sort of god, and they got overwhelmed, and was barely able to get out of there. And so the governess thinks, like, oh, she's dead, right? There's no way. And so he's like, give him to the butler. He'll be able to handle this. And she's like, what? He's a butler. We need a doctor. And she's like, you don't understand what this man could do. He's the only one that can figure it out, alive or dead. And so sure enough, 3 days later, has her stable and tries to heal her up to the point where she's okay. She heals. It takes literally weeks, if not months, before she's totally ready to go. And then she meets Barnabas when he comes back from his most recent adventure going into this crazy fantasy land, and basically presents her with the head of the god that tried to kill them. And he's like, you can do what you want. We can hang it. We can burn it, whatever you want. And then Helen takes it and throws it on the ground and is all pissed off. And it's like, you're not going to cast me aside, and you're not going to keep me sidelined because of like one incident. I want to go back out there. And then Barnabas looks at her and is like, girl, you will never go out there ever again. You will finish your studies. You'll find a man and marry, and this will be the end of it. And like, again, once Barnabas says something, like, that's it. And so sure, she's pissed. She's like, there's no way. You're not going to sideline me. This is exactly what you did to my father. And we learned from the father, he just went off and he was depressed afterwards, right? And just went drinking, and then wrote all these crazy fantasy books because they were basically things that he lived out. And then he hung himself in the end. He's like, you're not going to treat me like that. And then, that ends up being the end of everything. She storms off, and that's the cliffhanger. I'm like, dude, this book, man, incredible. All the feels, all the emotion, art's outstanding. Let's go ahead and show off some of that so you can see it. It's perfection, folks. It is truly, truly, truly perfection. So here's the start. And like every single time starts off with this awesome splash cover as well. And here's where they're having basically this conversation, trying to learn to train. Here's where the training montage begins. And she just learns nonstop. Looks to be like this total badass in the end. I don't know if you can really, like, I wish I could show it on the camera. Like, the level of detail on this, actually, it doesn't look too terrible when I show it up close, but like, it's outstanding of what we're looking at here, right? It looks like each page would have taken days upon days, hours upon hours to draw. Every single page is like that. So here's where they're sparring, and then Barnabas is like, yep, got the seal of approval. We're going out adventuring. They continue to adventure, and they're killing a whole bunch of like different dragons and stuff, and they're doing all this craziness. And then here's where Helen comes back as this bloodied up, beaten pulp. The governess is freaking out. Barnabas is like, she will survive because I do not will her to die or something like that. Insane stuff. That was the guy that killed him. She's finally healed up. He brings back the god's head. She's all disappointed by it. Sure enough, they get into a huge tiff about it, and she just goes storming off in the end. Yeah. Helen of Wyndhorn. Awesome. 5. Highly recommend. Incredible stuff. You don't want to miss this. Go ahead and pick it up wherever you can find it. It's incredible. Tom King crushes it. The art's outstanding. What more do you want? What more do you want? Not a goddamn thing. This is perfect. Helen of Wyndhorn. Can't wait to finish it out. I'm actually kind of sad. Like, I don't want to finish it out, but I gotta see where it goes. So next, we got Batman. One Dark Knight. We finished this one up. It's a DC Black Label. I gave this book a 4. League gave it a 4 as well.
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.
I think that's the only one that we did this episode with and nailed it. But yeah, this is fine. It's an all's well that ends well type of ending to our comic here. So that's totally fine. Hardcover magazine format here. We are dealing with EMP is the villain, if you will. And he's not even really a villain. More of a victim, to be honest with you. But EMP is being transported from Arkham to Blackgate in the middle of the summer, in the middle of a blackout. And this Dr. Velasquez is the one that ordered it to happen. She's like super high up because Blackgate has superior, technology to where they're able to manage EMP symptoms better. That's not the case. Every gang member in the entire city was aware of it. This big old ambush happens. They attack the truck. EMP gets out. And EMP is like, doesn't really know what's happening. Ends up stumbling towards Times Square. Explodes as an EMP. And like takes the lights out and everything is blackout. This is in the middle of the night that this happens. Batman's by himself. He doesn't have any backup, doesn't have any contact with the police, and every single gang in the city is after him to try to either kill EMP, get EMP and his gang back together, or try to go after Batman. So, Batman's in a bad spot. That was issue 1. Issue 2 was the fight of Batman trying to get to Blackgate, and it looked like EMP's gang got him and brought him down to the sewers. That's the end of issue 2. So here we are now at the beginning of issue 3. Batman heads into the sewers, and sure enough, who do you think he finds down there? It is Killer Croc. So he's down there fighting. It actually looked like Batman was getting his ass kicked, which was kind of surprising here, because like that's not the Batman I've read in a majority of these books. But finally, he's able to get basically a break. He uses some sort of light thing that confuses Killer Croc, that allows him to grab EMP, brings him back up to the surface. So when he gets to the surface, they're very close to Blackgate at this point, and the sun is rising as well. And Batman's like, shit, we got to get him in this containment thing before the sun rises, otherwise then it's going to like just be chaos. EMP this whole time is like, I don't want to do this. He also had a son. The last time he went like super EMP and exploded, it was his son's mother, well, you know, his wife basically, that he unintentionally killed. Come to find out, he didn't just kill his mother, he killed a whole bunch of people in that explosion. So we're trying to prevent that. He doesn't want it to happen. He much preferred to just be sedated, and he just wants to keep everyone safe. So this is why he's more of like a victim, if anything. But Velasquez, who's the head, she is taking EMP's son Brody, who also has like similar powers, and is trying to use him as basically bait in a way. So she is on one side of this bridge that goes to Blackgate. Batman is on the other. All the gangs are up there waiting for him when he gets to the surface. They shoot a whole bunch of rocket launchers and they blow the bridge. So that leaves Batman like and EMP get to the other side, but the bridge is completely cut off. So it's EMP and Batman and Velasquez and Brody that are up on the bridge. The gang keeps shooting some more missiles, and then Batman loses his footing, and so he's basically not in the picture. Velasquez sends Brody into EMP, and it's like, this is your actual father. He's the one who killed your mother and like causes all this chaos. So then both Brody and EMP interact with each other, and then it creates like kind of the surge of the energy that's happening. Plus Brody's really pissed off. And we've come to find out at that moment that Velasquez's, her whole family was killed in that last EMP blast that also killed EMP's wife. So it's like, that's her motive behind all of this. And so Batman, though, he fights his way, gets back up to the top of the bridge. He's able to separate the two. Basically speaks more to Brody than to EMP, because they basically have to separate it. And it's like the power that's rising in Brody is causing the power to rise into EMP. And he's like, Brody, listen to me. You don't want to do this. Here's how we can figure it out. And, you know, talks about his loss and everything like that. EMP is at the point where he's kind of losing it. Batman pushes him off into the water below. So it seems to neutralize him for now. And now Velasquez is there, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's your word versus mine. No one's going to believe you as like some sort of vigilante or whatever. But the power is coming back on. The daylight's coming up. Batman recorded the whole thing. All the GCPD folks heard it as well. So boom, she's caught. She's going to be charged and everything like that. Brody's all good. He's safe at this point. And then they fish out EMP from the water. They got a heartbeat. He's totally fine too. All's well that ends well. So that's basically the story there. I didn't get any resolution to Montoya in issue number 2. Velasquez just led her to like just die in a car accident. She was like pinned down and a whole bunch of gang members going after her, and she just left her there. I was like, geez. So that's basically how that all ended. But here, let's show off some of the Killer Croc stuff. Let's see, where is all that? Don't think I'm far enough into the book. Here we go. So, issue number 3. We're down in the dark. Killer Croc is revealed. Big old fight is taking place. Batman's able to get out with some flash of lights. From there, we get to the top here. This is where I have the reference to the bridge, as you can see it on that side. Then we got EMP and Brody on this side, and this is where they basically start interacting with each other. But Batman's able to get there and prevent it from happening with Brody. Pushes EMP into the water. Velasquez does her little monologuing, gets caught there. So now she's down and out. They fish out EMP. All's well that ends well. So, sorry for the audio, folks, as this enormous book is scraping across the table. But that way, the video folks can see it. And for the audio folks, feel free to hop onto the YouTube, Saturday Morning Comic Review. Go ahead and look up the Omega Run or any issue. So yeah, excellent book. Again, I gave this a 4. I think overall, if I were to give the book a score, I think it's just going to be a 4. So first one I gave a 4.5. Second one I gave a 4. And third one I gave a 4. First one, Lee gave a 4.1, 4.1, and then 4.0 is where Lee is at. I'd probably end up giving it a 4 in the end. So yeah, Batman, One Dark Knight, 3-part issue, magazine format. I think it's worth picking up. I think the artwork was pretty good. It's a pretty standard story. Yeah, I'd recommend it, especially if you can find it on sale or something like that. So with that, we are all wrapped up here on all the books. So let's just go ahead and recap everything. We had G.I. Joe, issue number 15. We got Duke and Cobra Commander in a bad spot, but it looks like Clutch and CoverGirl are going to go after them. We got Miles Morales, Spider-Man, issue number 41. Second to last issue here, but we have Peter Parker who's going to help them out to defeat that sentient AI. Batman and Robin, issue number 18. Looks like Damian's fed up and he wants to quit. Nice House on the Lake, issue number 9. Ryan is going right behind, tailing in Walter and Nora to see the backstage of what's happening. Saga, issue number 36 or 35. I actually can't remember. What was it? 35, where we have Marco finally getting into the refugee camp. Is Hazel taken or not? And then also Prince Robot's son is in trouble. Assorted crisis events of a man whose life is literally flying before his eyes. Do a Powerbomb, issue number 3. First match, first tournament match has taken place. They advance, but just barely. Poison Ivy, issue number 7. Poison Ivy seems like she's paralyzed, and she's kind of met her match in a CEO of a fracking company. Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 4. Helen's trained up to be a warrior. She's injured, and now she's sidelined, but she will not have it. And Batman, One Dark Knight, issue number 3, the conclusion to this 3-part series where we have EMP and his son Brody, who seem to get the care that they needed while taking out the real bad guy in Velasquez. So, those are the books for the Omega. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up. If you'd like to follow the show, check out the description, all in the description section, obviously, of the podcast. There you can see all the different handles of where the show is available on the social media channels. Obviously, the show itself is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube as well. If you'd like to support, you can check out the link, buymeacoffee.com/Saturday Morning Review. There you can go and support. Honestly, all the money would just go towards comics on the comic side of things, and the wrestling. I actually mentioned it earlier in this evening because I recorded a episode of that earlier this evening, towards like wrestling pay-per-views and things along those lines. I think we will wrap it up here. So thank you so very much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. The next issue will come out Saturday as per usual. Then we'll do another Omega from there. I'll keep you guys in the loop of what's going to happen with the Christmas holiday. I think it's pretty much the regular schedule up until Christmas, and then maybe that Saturday is where things start to get a little dicey. But, as we get closer, I'll just let you know what all I plan on doing. So, yeah, thanks again. We'll close it out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.